Good morning. For the few new, I'm Lenore Askew, and I find things that I hope inspire people. My thinking is, why write it when somebody out there has thought it and has written it better than I could? The other thing I'd like to say, because there are a number of people who are relatively new, when we were very early stages of our congregation, we used a service from I shouldn't exactly call it a service, I guess, from the UUA called the Church of the Larger Fellowship, thus the initials CLF in your bulletin. It's kind of a church by mail and by phone. And each month they send some sermons and things to think about, and yet they do a large ministry by phone to people all over the world who have no access to a Unitarian Universalist congregation. So in the very beginning, we used a lot of their sermons, and thanks to Scott and Cindy Rubin, we've been able to maintain connection with them because they have maintained a membership with the Church of the Larger Fellowship. And this particular thought, this sermon for today, was written by Jane Rzepka, who had been the main minister of the Church of the Larger Fellowship from 1999 until I think it was 2009, when she actually had a relapse from childhood polio. And she had, I know we think about polio as almost gone, and yet hers was a relapse. And she's someone I particularly enjoy reading. And as Joanne has said, things can get very intense these days with bad news and more bad news. So I thought I'd try to find something that maybe would shift our focus just a little bit. So this is by Jane Rzepka. The opening piece, though, is by a minister named Tom Owen Toll, who wrote a book of meditations entitled Free Thinking Mystics with Hands, Exploring the Heart of Unitarian Universalism. Ponder that for a while. An old Egyptian myth teaches a valuable lesson about joy and the purpose of life. After death, Egyptians believed that they would be confronted by the god Osiris, and they would be given a quiz that had to be answered honestly. After 42 routine questions concerning how the deceased had lived, Osiris asked a crucial two-part question. First, did you find joy? And second, did you bring joy? Note that the emphasis is not on what we produce or on our possessions, not even on our creative talents or our good works. The purpose of our earthly journey is simply this. Did you find joy? And did you bring joy? These petitions, because the petitioners could not lie to Osiris, they had very much at stake facing their last moments. If they answered the questions affirmatively, they were returned a measure of continued existence. If not, they were taken forthwith and eaten by a hippopotamus. Oh, that we had hippopotami for non-truth tellers. That wasn't Jane. Sorry. One of the forebears in our religious family tree is, of course, Ralph Waldo Emerson. He was a Unitarian minister and an essayist. He was one of those kids who learned Latin at the age of 6. And I've read that he studied the word affirmation at some outrageously early age. He came to believe that affirmation, defined as to strengthen for good, was the cornerstone of a meaningful life. For Emerson, God existed in the divine spark in every human life. Emerson's affirmation and Osiris's focus on joy go hand in hand. Affirmation, joy. Both cornerstones of our religion. First, we try to be affirming people to help strengthen one another for good. We tell our children that we respect their thoughts and feelings, and we put that into practice. We govern ourselves democratically. Each vote counts as much as another. We do our best to understand and respect the religious beliefs of others. We want to offer dignity to people whether they feel they deserve it or not. And while we understand that awful things happen in the world, we do not base our religion on sin, original or otherwise, or guilt, or the flames of hell. We are astonishingly affirmative in our theological viewpoint. When affirmation works, when we're feeling full, healthy, worthy, and grateful, joy is easily available. Autumn's apples taste fresh and flavorful. Candy corn coming around the corner is somehow fun to have around. And in the southern hemisphere, because this CLF does reach all of the world at this time of year, it's the beginning of the sweet smell of spring, and it could have you humming those touching love songs or singing raucous rock oldies at the top of your lungs. We have a religion that approves of joy, that encourages joy, just as Osiris does. And we have a religion that promotes joy not just for us, but for all people. We call it justice. Not everyone experiences Emerson's divine spark within. In fact, many have internalized exactly the opposite message at home, in church, from the kids at school, from society at large. They've internalized that we are sinners in need of God's grace, and our souls are corrupt. Or that we're stupid and we won't amount to much. Or because of where we're from and how we talk or how we look, or maybe because we're a little weird somehow, we're not the successful type. We may have been treated as though we were unworthy, or bad, or invisible, or guilty, or never quite good enough. And we need the healing that affirmation can bring. Society encourages us to believe that we'd be better off with whiter teeth and more megabytes, with motion sensors and thigh masters, and cars that could follow the mules off-road down into the Grand Canyon. We don't, most of us, have large numbers of people marveling at our inherent divine spark. Whether it is a fellow Unitarian Universalists who need confirmation or folks outside the fold, our religion calls us to notice the divine spark in ourselves and in one another, to offer that joy, just the way Osiris wants. In the back of my mind, the hippos are lying in wait. I tell myself that Osiris isn't insisting that I find joy every minute of the day. I can lock my keys in the car, noting just as the door slams. I can put a red pen in the laundry with the whites without noticing. I can miss a glaring, no doubt offensive typo in a large mailing. I can grieve, I can stumble, I can get mad as a hornet. I can dwell on something petty, and I can act really juvenile. I'm counting on Osiris to understand that while joy is intermittent in the fullness of life, it registers, it counts. It counts, and the hippos won't eat us. The same goes for giving joy. It's enough for Osiris, I hope, that we acknowledge the divine sparks around us, that we help with the healing and do the anti-oppression work as best as we can. It won't be a perfect day in the neighborhood, or the country, or the world. We know that. And a whole lot of people will go home tonight not feeling affirmed. But we will attend the rally or speak the words of kindness and encouragement. We will delight in the children. We will tell the truth. We will give the gifts we know how to give. The soup, the song, the manifesto, the crazy story. And we will hope against hope that we never see the hippopotamus close at hand. We will strengthen for the good. Blessed be.